So I mentioned at the outset that this is one of the most enjoyable things I do anyway, and I think I speak for our staff here at the Asia Society in New York and globally. Many of our center directors are here and our trustees for our annual board meeting. This conversation is a little tricky precisely because these four women come from four, not just different countries, but totally different backgrounds and different professions. So really we could have one program about sport and one about art and one about business in China and one about law enforcement in India. So the trick is to, and by the way, we'll invite you to ask any questions on any of these fronts that you'd like of any of our guests, but just to start with a question or two that could in some way apply to all of you. Glass ceiling is one phrase. The governor of Tokyo, who by the way couldn't be here, she's one of our game changers. She's busy dealing with the typhoon and its aftermath in Tokyo. She uses the phrase iron plate in Japan. She said it's not a glass ceiling here. In her culture, it's more like an iron plate. Can you talk a little bit, and maybe we'll start from Sana's side and work our way down. What have you found, whether at the very young age, there were very nice baby pictures, by the way, Sana, or beyond, what were, in your culture or in your professional world, the biggest obstacles as you've sort of moved your way? Because you've all succeeded at breaking through that glass ceiling. Can you identify one or two areas that were the toughest?
Yes, as for the picture, it has to be my father taking all those nice pictures. And I think all the obstacles that we had to come our way, we were able to come above them because of the family support, I have to say. Because the biggest obstacle, there are two things that I would like to start with, is there is absolutely almost no infrastructure of sports for the girls of Pakistan. I mean, there are in schools also, the grounds are mostly for boys, and in colleges also. So first is the infrastructure, the community grounds, the community parks. We don't have a lot of them. If we have some facility, physical activity, it is either for the elite people. So that is one obstacle that any girl who wanted to play sport in Pakistan had to face. But a bigger problem has to be the perception about whether a girl should play or whether they can play. So those doubts were in our minds also, because we never saw a Pakistani athlete doing really well on world cricket. Or world sport, in fact. So the perception, breaking that perception, I think that was the key thing for ourselves also and for the nation also. And I think the first gold medal in 2010, that was the stepping stone. That was the first thing that basically did a very big thing for us, when people understood that we have a team who has basically won a tournament on such a big level. And after that, slowly and gradually, things became better. We were given some stability. But I have to say that these two obstacles, one of them is still there. The infrastructure is still very minimum. It's getting better, but it's minimum. But the perception has changed, and I'm very, very glad and happy about that the people now accept women in sport. They want their daughters to play cricket, and it has happened in a period of 10 to 15 years, which is a very short time. And I think that is something that I would say that has been the biggest obstacle.
So one specific follow-up, and I read this somewhere, so it may or may not be true, but about, I think 20 years ago or 30, I don't remember, there's a story about how there was a women's cricket match that a few thousand people were in the stadium. Most of them were men, and most of them were actually police officers, because there had been death threats against the women who were going to play. Was it that severe, and did you ever face any kind of, I mean, maybe not that, what sort of backlash?
So I've heard this story. I've not been part of that team. It was, I think, like you said, 20 years ago. It was by PWCCA. Two sisters used to run that team for Pakistan at that moment. So I've heard the story that they faced that. If I say that personally, I haven't faced anything like that in my entire career. Yes, sometimes you have to be culturally sensitive. You need to understand which part of the country, because our country is new to women's sports. So we can't take it to every city at the moment. I think in the last 10 to 12 years, I think we have been very culturally sensitive of how we take the sport forward. And I think that's the reason we have succeeded. And if I say about my journey, I've played in Abbottabad, I have played in Lahore, I've played in Multan, I've played in Faisalabad, Karachi, but we have never faced anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Good, good. And thank you. So, speaking of obstacles, and I confess I have been, I think, exactly twice to your country, Hoor Al Qasimi, the United Arab Emirates, and both times for brief stays in Dubai. So, but I think it's fair to say, you know, male-dominated culture can mean many different things in many different places. I mean, here, of course, we have yet to have a woman as president, but it's fair to say, right, that the UAE is a pretty male-dominated culture, and as it says in the film, you not only took charge of this big enterprise in Sharjah, but you also were just 22 years old. So to what extent were your age and your gender obstacles or difficulties at that time, and how'd you overcome them?
Yeah. To be honest, I never felt it within the country, because actually women do everything.
Yeah.
You know.
Women do everything.
Women do everything.
Okay. Well, that's true in a lot of places. I mean,
so I never felt the challenges, but what was surprising to me is when I would meet artists from different countries, from Korea or from the West, who would come and say, "You're the director, but you're young and you're a woman." And I realized that in the West, there aren't many women museum directors at that young age. So for me, it was more about trying to, I wondered how I need to explain myself or position myself in a way at the same level as other international museum directors when I was just 22, a painter and a woman. So for me, I've had some interviews with magazines, German magazines or newspapers, and they would say, "Is it challenging being an Arab curator and a woman?" And I said, actually not, because technically I'm the other. So I'm not coming with this perception of being, coming from the West to any other culture to discover.
What do you mean by the other?
Meaning I'm the woman, so men are always, you know, given the platform. I'm not white. Yeah. So in a way, when I go and meet with artists, for example, in Senegal or in Tokyo, I'm not coming with this kind of presence with the history of this colonial dominance. So in a way, I feel like it's more approachable. And then my age also helps with older artists as well. So I think there's definitely an understanding, and that's why we continue to have a lot of our conversations being about the Global South. How can we, as the Global South, write our own history, come together and not wait to be discovered or written about by the West. And I think for us, that's the main thing. And
just, you know, these videos are necessarily brief, but can you talk a bit more about, there's that one line in there where it said that somebody said, "Okay, why don't you do it?" Yeah. And you're 22. Yeah. What were the challenges, whether they had anything to do with gender or not? I mean, there must have been a lot, right?
Nobody wanted to do anything. I was sweeping the floor. I was sticking labels. Yeah. I worked 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. But I started with a team of 4 people, and now we have a team of 300 people. Wow. You know, and I think this is, you know, it's and the team that I have respect what I do because they've seen me clean the floors and stick labels.
Yeah, good for you. So that's an important thing. So let's go to, again, whole different world in every chair to my right here. So, Jie Sun, you really, you climbed that ladder or got through that glass ceiling very, very quickly. And we know, I guess, a lot of things in China today are happening very quickly. But can you, the CEO office is, again, in this country as well, is not as commonly occupied by a woman as it ought to be, and in China that's been more pronounced. Back to the original question about obstacles or hindrances to your own growth, what were the most significant things, and what do you think helped you fly up as you have?
I spent almost 20 years in the USA. In 2005, I returned to China as one of the very young CFO, female CFO in the market. During the first couple of months, I led the delegation to Japan. When we met with our counterpart in Japanese companies, when our founder went in, male, young, People bow to them very politely. The second funnel went in, same thing. I was ranked number 3 at the time. The counterpart thought I was the secretary for them. They turned around and walked away without even greeting me. So that's kind of pressure I was facing when I first became the CFO of the company. However, I always believe individual also needs to drive the process. So I was working day and night. At that time, Ctrip was very small. We only had 2,000 employees. Today we have 40,000 employees. Wall Street didn't know who we are. So normally after the earnings call, I get on a plane, land in San Francisco, 8 o'clock in the morning, take a shower, go all day roadshow nonstop. And then from San Francisco, red eye to Boston, all day roadshow in Boston. 2 days in New York, red eye to London, 2 days in Scotland, nonstop. So through the hard work, Ctrip become a very well-respected company. And as a CFO, I didn't really limit myself because of my title or because of my ranking. Whatever our company need, I just jump in and fix it. So gradually, our board wanted me to become the COO of the company. And as the COO, again, I didn't really limit myself for my job description. Anywhere for global partners, I was flying all over the world to establish business relationships. So later on, I became the co-president and then CEO of the company. So for our young generation, I always encourage our people, men or female or male, do not limit yourself because your title or because of your ranking or because of your gender. Change is possible only you're willing to do so. So that's at the individual level. But as an executive, I feel much is expected. As a working mother, we established a policy so that when you're pregnant, we offer taxi for free. When the baby is born, we give you $800 as a gift, $3,000 as education fee. When they come back to work, we offer flexible working hours. And recently, I noticed lots of young ladies start to, study for PhDs and master's degrees overseas. So when they come back to China, the birth period is shortened. Instead of having them struggle by debating whether to have career first or family first or baby first, if they take advantage of the new technology, if they choose to have their eggs frozen, Ctrip will pay for it. And Ctrip is the only company and the first company who adopted this progressive policy. So through the hard work of our team, more than 50% of the workforce are females, more than 40% of the middle managers are females, and more than 1/3 of the executives are females. Still, we have a long way to go.
So Chhaya Sharma, I couldn't help noticing that one thing the two of you do have in common, in addition to being Asia Game Changers, is it seems like 20-hour days was the necessary thing at the beginning, right? Now, you probably had your share of 20-hour days on that case. So, listen, I mean, actually, before I ask you a question, where's Richie Mehta? Is he in the audience? So, Richie is not a woman, and so, we'll excuse that. But he is the award-winning producer of the Netflix series and director, and it's great to have you here, Richie Mehta. So talk a little bit, if you can, Chhaya. Well, I guess I should ask you that initial question about obstacles. I can only imagine when you were first put on that case. But is it also true that, I assume it's true, that being a woman, in terms of what you were asked to do, in some ways was a big help? But I'll let you...
You want only in terms of the case?
Okay.
Yeah. So, in terms of the case, I had already done 12 years of service, so I was a professional. I was leading, a district with a lot of men in my team and women, and It was a challenge that, every time such a heinous offense occurs, you have to give it to yourself. I could have chosen not to get up, not to go to the spot in the night, and would have said, let someone handle it. I mean, I've done my day's work. But there was a standing instruction over whenever I've worked and wherever I've worked across India, that if in the night there is a call relating to a woman or a child or a heinous offense, which they cannot decide whether to wake me up or not, don't take a call, just wake me up. I'll take the call whether I should go or not, or who should handle it. So that was something which was very critical, that my staff knew that if something like this happens, they have to wake me up. And then it's like clockwork, because once you go there, you see the case and you understand, you meet the mother of the victim, it's like 2:35 in the night, a.m., and then you can't get away. You're a woman, you're a mother, you can understand. I've handled a lot of rape cases earlier also. This was kind of different. First of all, it was a blind case. And secondly, the most important thing was that the way they had committed the crime was one of the most macabre ones that I had come across. So also the injuries that the woman had incurred were very serious, as I discussed with the doctor, and we had almost nil clues at that point of time. So, I mean, you just can't say that, okay, let someone else handle that, because if you go away, then by the next day, nothing would have happened. Everybody have issues, even police officers, everybody has issues. So they say, oh, the boss is gone, then we also have work to do, and let someone. So that it's like the buck keeps passing on. So you have to say, okay, the buck stops at me. I'm the one who's responsible. I take charge, right from where it is to be registered, how it is to be done, who all are the people who will involved in it. Because when you're choosing your team, you have to have the right people for the right team. If you leave it to someone else, then they might just make a mess out of it. So that was important for me. And the fact that when you look into the victim's parents, you interact with the family, you can't just look away. And if you say, okay, you can't just say that God bless you or something else. Like, they're looking at you with so much hope that you are the police officer, you are the harbinger of hope for them at that point of time, and you are the one who's going to get their daughter justice. Then you have to say, yes, I will get that justice for you. And when you commit that, you just say, yes, I commit all my time to you. So the next 7 days, you don't go home. It wasn't just 20 hours for me for those 7 days. It was almost like I didn't sleep for 7 days. But in those 7 days, what we were able to achieve, because I just kept sitting, whenever my team was tired, I said, look, come on, let's have a chat. I'll make coffee for you or something else. So that at least they realized that she's not going away. She also has family. She also has this thing. Then we'll also not go away. And we were able to catch 6 unknown men, and we were able to make sure that they were the right people, and the way they connected with the case. We made sure that meticulously each and every piece of evidence that was picked up from the spot, from the victim, from the bus, from the criminals was properly linked, and how it was able to get conviction later on. So when you're doing that work, nobody realizes that what all you're going through. But it's the later, when in court cases, when the defense lawyer starts to shred your effort into pieces, it's that hard work which you do in the first initial period that matters, because it is the scientific evidence which eventually saved us. Yeah. It is the scientific evidence which clinched everything. Yeah. So that was important, and I think I'm glad in my life I've had, like Sana was saying, supportive parents, very supportive husband now. And I've had supportive bosses, at least who believed in me, that if she took a stand and if she said, sir, I'll do it, then it will be done. So I think times are changing now, and in India, there are a lot of senior officers who are women, who are, a lot of gender mainstreaming is happening, and I'm glad to be part of that. And I will just credit to all those people, especially men who are behind me, my father, my husband, my boss, everybody who feels that, yes, she can go out there and get a win back for us. So that belief is important. If you don't have the belief in your own women, in your family, your friend circle, then nobody else is going to do it for you.
I'm reminded as you give a very eloquent answer, Chhaya, of the first year of this endeavor, Malala Yousafzai, the icon of all kinds of things in girls' and women's rights from Pakistan, was one of the honorees. And when she came here, she came with her father. And I don't know if you probably have met him or heard him speak, but I mean, they are a very inspiring pair, but she gives all credit to him, you know, which is I wonder, I was going to ask this at the end, but in a way you've put in mind the whole question of role models. And all of you, in your own ways, because of your success, have now become role models, probably not only for girls and women, but for everyone in your countries and your professions. But I wonder if I can ask each of you, maybe we'll do it the same way, who your role models have been. If there's one person or more, friend, others.
For me, I think it started with my parents. The kind of people they are, the kind of leadership I saw in the house. I mean, they were always a team, complementing each other and making no distinction between the boy or the girl of the family, supporting us throughout. So I think I looked up to them when I was growing up. Whether it was nurturing or caring, I would look up to my mother, and whether it was wisdom and how to take things forward, I would look up to my father. And I think the way they have dealt is always like, whenever you want to deal another person, just always think that how would you feel if they deal you the same way. So I think that initially they have been my first role models, and I've tried to be like them. And over time, then your role changes as a human being. So initially, my role was basically to see how many children are there on the streets and whose parents are going to let them play. So initially, my role was very smaller, and I would have to convince people to let their children come out on the street and play because we didn't have a ground. So from there to then making it into the Pakistan team, then also convincing parents to let their daughters come and we'll take care of you. So of course then my role changes, and then you come into the international circuit. So all these years I think I have different role models. So for example, in cricket I've looked up to Imran Khan, I've looked up to MS Dhoni, I've looked up to Charlie Edwards for different
I'd love to say I know all these people. I know Imran Khan, but yeah.
With leadership, I think Prophet Muhammad, I think he has been an exceptional leader, and then Nelson Mandela. So I do read about these people also, because whether we like it or not, when we enter into a new field as women leaders, whether it's sports or any other field, you also have to understand the society you want to lead. So I think all this has helped me with different role models across the way. I can't say that this one person has been my role model. So in the last 2 years, I found my spiritual teacher, Shabano Alyani. I think she was very helpful for me to understanding, because I hit my 30s. Most of the girls have to retire as an athlete in their 30s. And I was going through that phase. And she helped me basically get into the inner self-belief and inner strength that Jaya also was talking about, that sometimes that's the only thing that matters. So then she became my role model, and how she influenced me to get that out of myself. And then I became #1 in the world at age 33, when most of the people thought that I should leave cricket, and I think that's it. So along the way, your role models change, and I think we should let that happen, and we should be receptive to the new people who want to inspire us for the different version of ourselves.
By the way, maybe that's where the Serena Williams thing comes from, because I think she's, what is she, 37, 38?
And she's a mother, and then she has won a title again, so yeah.
Yeah, you haven't met her, have you?
No, I haven't.
We should arrange that.
Yeah.
Where you've had some time to think, role models?
Yeah, I mean, I echo the same. My father was the biggest role model for me. He never raised me differently as a girl or as a boy. Just believed in me, pushed me harder to do more than I thought I could imagine. and sent me all over the world to do things. So for me, definitely a number one role model, and he's an educated man and cultured and an academic. And Okwi Envizor, who passed away this year, I visited Okwi's documenta as just an artist visiting, and it inspired me. I hadn't met him at the time, I was 22, and it really inspired me to look at art in a different way and to think that if this can happen in Germany, why can't it happen in the Middle East? So they were two of the most influential people, I would say, but yeah, I echo Sana. I'm always meeting new people who inspire me every day.
Great, thank you. Jane?
Yeah, my parents, like every kid, have very strong influence on me. My father was the president of his company, hardworking, being diligent, always have very strong influence on me. And my mother is the kindest person I can ever imagine. So, but today I want to speak about another person that is very significant in my life. 30 years ago, when I first came to the United States, after Deng Xiaoping opened the door for China, I was among the first 3,000 Chinese students who came to the States to study. And at that time, China was very poor. My parents are both engineers. They made 100 RMB per month, which is equivalent to 15 USD per month. So I had to work in order to pay my tuition. So I was a bus girl and a waitress in a restaurant, making $3 per hour in the United States. So after I paid my tuition, I'm penniless. But my professor's family were very, very kind to me. So they took me in and treated me as their own daughter. And Confucian's teaching for Chinese kids is that when you are young, your parents take good care of you. But when you are older, when your parents are older, a good Chinese kid will also take care of their parents. So I told them that when I grow older, when I'm able to, I want to take good care of them. But they said, oh, honey, you don't need to take good care of us. But instead, if you are able to, if you can help the other international students in the same way we help you, we'll be very happy. And I was very touched because I had no blood relationship with them, yet they are so unselfish. So although I was penniless at that time, I always had a very big dream. That is, if someday, with God's bless, if I'm able to, I really want to establish a scholarship named after my professor to help the international students. So I was very glad in 2016, I went back to my university and established a scholarship named after my professor. And I also named my first daughter after my professor's wife, Nancy Baldwin, who will attend today's dinner. You will meet with her.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Chhaya, you have a role model you'd like to share?
Well, like all of them, it starts with the family. So definitely my father was a great role model. He would always push me, and like Sana said, no discrimination. So I landed up being a tomboy. Used to do a lot of naughty things, and my father used to be apologetically, I'm sorry, my daughter did this thing, to do the cover for me. So, over the years, then he pushed me into becoming a civil servant. I never wanted to be one. I was doing business, but he said, no, you have an inclination, which he saw, and he, in fact, motivated me to actually sit for the exam, which I cleared and became an IPS officer. And today I can say after 20 years of civil servant work, I think I should thank him because I've been able to affect a lot of lives because of that. The second person, I think, after I got married was my husband who came into my life. He's an IIT graduate, and he's also my batchmate. He's also an IPS officer. I have never seen or understood how he's able to do it every time. Like, I'm here and he says, you go, I'm going to do babysitting. And, there are times when even the Nirbhaya case happened, I couldn't come home. He will just ask me, do you need a replenishment of clothes? Can I send you some home food? So, it's like he understands that, this woman is handling a challenging task, and nobody understands me and my professional work better than him. So, your parents can understand your private needs, as a person, but he understands even the professional part of it. And there were times when people told him that, your wife was doing a man's job, and should she not be with some other women and things like that. He said, no, I trust her and she's too good at it, and I'm fine with that. So, every time, like yesterday someone told us about, like you said, about the iron plate, someone told about the vertical cliff for women. So I realized that not once, but many times in my career, I have been pushed to the vertical cliff, where men put you in a job and then they say, oh, let's see whether she can do it. And the most difficult district or the most difficult case, and then they want to see if you can't do it, they say, oh, you never could do it, we knew it, don't worry. But, every time I was given this vertical cliff, I know that in my professional life, my husband has always said, babes, you're the one who can do it. Go ahead. I'm, holding the fort. Go ahead and do it. Don't worry about anything else. Somehow, in the back of your mind, it keeps going on. That I have this one guy in the whole world who's like so supportive and doesn't want to see me down. So I have to climb the vertical cliff or the Mount Everest or whatever. So, that is there. Professionally, I think, some people in my team are there. They're extremely good police officers. A couple of them are subordinates. They're in age senior to me, but my subordinates. The way they handle criminals, the way they handle victims, the switch in the soft and the hard, you're suddenly hard, and then even the soft part towards the victim, the change and how they are able to express and take away the case from a seemingly uncomfortable situation to a very smooth transition to even the most hardened criminals come and confess, yeah, we did this, and they will start confiding. Now that art was like I learned from some of my subordinates how they're able to emphatically connect not only with the victims, which is easier, you can empathize, but sometimes even with the criminals to understand why they came into crime in the first place, what was the problem that brought them there. So I think to that extent, Rajinder is like one of my role models that I felt that, he's really good, and Rishi knows about him. He's shown as my, my right hand or left hand or whatever. But he's the guy I'm really impressed with, in terms of this thing. And I have, I think, 3-4 bosses I can name who have been very, very, inspiring, because over the years, like she says, you transform and you have to change your the people who inspire you. Every boss that I've had has, in some way inspired me. Like I had Mr. Karnail Singh, Mr. Vivek Gogia, I've had Mr. Neeraj Kumar, Mr. So many I can name. So all of them in their own way, because whenever I did something and I would like come to them and say, sir, this is what I've done. So the way they would look at me, the way they would project it, not as if a woman has done it, or, oh, I have to give it, to her, but, yeah, great, and then they would treat me just like the way they would treat another man, a male officer. That gave me a lot of confidence, because if you start giving me special treatment, then I would feel a little uncomfortable, because I don't want that special treatment. I just probably needed that equal treatment, and even if I had some problem and I say, no, sir, I'll still do it, they will not say, okay, she's saying it, she'll do it, she'll do it. We're not going to ask her unless she comes to us and says, sir, I need special treatment. So I think that was very important. And the fact that in difficult circumstances where sometimes their own seat was at the chopping block, they believed in me, and then they said, okay, we believe in what she's bringing to the table, and the court will also, believe. We agree with what she's doing. So that confidence, if someone has, probably I want to be a boss like that. In future, whenever I have subordinates, I should be able to lead like them, and should be able to give that confidence to my subordinates who are females, males, or whoever. And that is a very inspiring thing as a leader, because if you can be what you expect others to be, that is very inspiring for me. So there have been a lot of role models over this thing, but I think if you just, like she said, there can be many. Yeah. So not one specific person, but professionally there'll be like so many people, personally and professionally.
So that's great. One quick last question from me. In a way, Chhaya, you've already answered this because you gave a lot of really good lessons for young girls or women, whether it's the vertical cliff or others, but maybe the three other women here, if there's one quick lesson or one thought you would give to, I don't know, a young woman in the audience here, a young girl anywhere, it doesn't matter whether they're in sport or art or business or whatever, but who's feeling a bit like they're facing obstacles and they're facing issues because of their gender. What's one thing you would say to that young girl?
I think what's extremely important is to work extremely hard, because that's something we have to accept, that as girls and women we have to sometimes work harder than any other person. So first thing is that we need to accept that life is not going to be comfortable. We will have to, like all of these women, sometimes have to work 20 hours a day to get the thing done that other people might take 10 hours a day because they have more help. So the first thing is that they need to make working hard a habit. And the other thing is that stick to your core values. I think that is extremely important, to believe in the process and not care about the results, because sometimes in the world of today, I see that women are pressured into achieving something very quickly. But it's okay, everyone has their own journey. Some will make big when they are 30, some will make big when they are 40, some will make big when they are 50. So just if you have your core values intact, you will have that satisfaction also in the heart when you achieve something. So I think for me that is a very important thing, because I see so many mental illnesses, depression, so many things in the world of today. So having that core values and keeping your process intact, I think that is extremely important for a happy life.
Thank you. Hard work, core values.
Yeah, all of the above. I think, well, you have to believe in yourself. And I also, men, women, boys, girls, I think if you really want to do something and make a change, you have to try. There's nothing stopping you. If you fail, it's fine. You get up and you try again. You know, we faced many obstacles, and actually we learn from our mistakes, and they only make you stronger. So I think, yeah, just believe in yourself. And if you really want to do something, you just get up and do it yourself.
Thank you. Jane, anything to add?
I'm a working mother. So I always think being a mother, being a good wife is a full-time job. Being a CEO is more than a full-time job. So in order to do well on both sides, I think we need to be prepared to invest twice as much as you want to achieve only one side of the success. However, if you give twice of the efforts, the harvest is twice as well. You will be achieving on your family side as well as on the career side. In the company, I think it's very important to understand that the strengths from a male leader and a female leader, particularly in the high-tech industry where male is so dominant, they can bring great assets to the team. For example, logic thinking, big picture, dare to compete. So these are very good traits brought by the male leaders. However, female has their own strength. For example, they're very good team builder, very willing to make personal sacrifice in the best interest of their team. Very good with putting themselves in other people's shoes and strive for a win-win strategy. Good at communication, good at multitasking. So for me, the critical challenge to run a successful company is really to bring the best of male leader and a female leader together. And every year end, when we do focal review, the people who come to my office ask for promotion, ask for a raise, normally are male VPs. A lot of female VPs, I have to push them and say, you're doing a very good job. Why not go through the promotion process? The answer they get is, oh, Ctrip already gave me such a good opportunity. I need to improve more. I'm just very comfortable at this level. I need to improve more, which is wonderful, However, when you read the statistics, in any job advertisement, if you have 10 criteria, when male workers fulfill 5 or 6, they feel very comfortable to ask for the job. On the female side, if you have 10 criteria, they have to fulfill all 10 items before they submit
Absolutely.
the application, right?
Guys, it's true, huh?
So internally, as the executive, we need to realize male worker, female worker, there is different behavior. You need to be fair, right, to each of them. However, at the individual level, I would encourage our female potential leaders, really push yourself out of your comfort zone. You will do well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm mindful of the time. So I assume you all know, but if you don't, we are in for another very different treat in a moment with the honorees from Nepal and India who are occupying most of the front row here, the Kung Fu Nuns.
Yay!
Yeah. But I want to allow for some questions from the audience for these great women who are up here now. Yes, sir, and we'll get you a mic, and if you can keep it brief and just tell us who you are, that'd be great. Here, and then Richie, did you have a question too? So we'll go there and here. Yeah.
Hello. I am Iftikhar Ali from Associated Press of Pakistan. I have a question for Sana Mir. First, congratulations on your award. And secondly, I'm surprised how quickly you got into New York, because only a couple of days ago I saw you playing cricket in Lahore with Prince Williams of Britain and
Yes.
Kate Middleton.
Well, it gets better because on Saturday she's playing a test match with Bangladesh.
T20.
My question is that, yes, under your inspiring leadership, cricket is expanding in Pakistan, but it's still confined to few major cities. Have you tried to tap cricket potential in the rural areas of Pakistan? Because some of our men cricketers have come, some of our outstanding cricketers have come from the rural Pakistan.
Okay.
Yes, I totally agree, and most of the team that's been built up, the women's team, is also from the rural areas. A lot of girls that you see playing in Lahore and Karachi are the girls who have come out of Gilgit, Quetta, and smaller areas. That's the first thing I talked about, the infrastructure. That because the smaller cities and the villages do not have the infrastructure for women to go out and play, so these girls have to leave their houses, their homes, their families, and come to Lahore and Karachi to actually play cricket. So there are a lot of now universities and colleges, which is another step we have been asking them to be more supportive, who are giving educational, basically cricket scholarships to these girls. So what these colleges do, that they give them accommodation and food and tuition, and they just come and play cricket and study also. So a lot of girls that you see, like Diana Beg, Nahida, these are from Quetta, and we have got a girl from Kashmir, Natalia Parvez. So they all come and study in these colleges and play there. So with PCB, Pakistan Cricket Board, we have been pushing them to increase the infrastructure. So 1.5 years ago, they have established 5 academies in 5 different regions for the women of Pakistan. So Peshawar, Islamabad, Lahore, Karachi, and Multan. So these are the 5 major cities now where girls can come and play cricket, and the coaching is free of cost. So we are pushing the Pakistan Cricket Board to do more stuff, but there's so much to be done, especially I think if we want to compete at international level, the grassroots sports structure, the schools and colleges need to make room for girls sport and have to invest there, because the number of population we have cannot be catered by 5 academies or 4 clubs. So it has to be a nationwide campaign.
Thank you. Richie? You wait for the mic.
It feels like perseverance seems to be one of the themes of this talk, and I'm just wondering if any of you, all of you, could briefly share moments in your life, professional life, where it was the lowest you'd ever gone, and you questioned where you were, and perhaps it was a point in your life where you felt you couldn't go forward, and yet you did. I'm just curious if there's something that comes to mind.
Anybody want to take that? A low moment in your life where
I've had a lot. I've had a lot. I think 3 or 4 times I decided that I want to quit. Started writing my resignation. But then my teammates would come and flock me and said, no, you have to stay on. So it was that moment. But then in 2017, after the World Cup, I was 31 years old. We lost all the games in the World Cup. Before the World Cup, we had 5 coaches being changed in the last 6 months. 2 of my best players, the batters, because we struggled with batting, got injured right before the World Cup. So we went into the World Cup with a half team, and then we lost all the games. I was 31, which is the retirement age for athletes. So I faced a lot of media criticism, a lot of self-doubt, and a lot of stuff. But sometimes all this failure helps you look into yourself, and sometimes you can find the strength that you never know that you had. And I think that helped me in the last 2 years to be at the top again, say that becoming number 1, when I used to see Sania Mirza from India being number 1 with Martina Hingis. I thought that she can pair up with an international athlete, but for someone from our cricket, we have to do it alone. How can we ever do that? And I never thought that I would reach that. But the best lesson that I learned in that time was, like she said, that you have to just give your best every single day and show up. No matter what happens, you show up again. You fall down, you show up again. That's all that is in your hand, and the results take care of themselves.
You have a low moment you want to share?
I do, yeah. It was a very public one, definitely. We had a situation in 2011 where an artwork caused a lot of controversy, and the community and the public were protesting, and the federal police got involved, and we were all going to get shut down. So, of course, I had a big responsibility. And on one side, I had the local public telling me that this is offending them, and I have the international art world elite saying this is censorship. So where do you stand? And I thought, okay, number 1, I have to save the foundation. I had a staff who are relying on this job. And if people in their high towers in New York City can criticize us because they think something is censored, they don't really understand the community we're in. And I might as well open up a gallery in New York City or London. So I took the decision to ignore the noise of the echo chamber and focus on saving the foundation. And it completely changed our remit to really working on community programs. And since then, our audience numbers grew more than 5 times because we listened to our audience and we realized what people need and how, if you are trying to, even if you try to push the boundaries, you can't do that if your audience is not listening to you. If you lose your audience, then you're just talking to yourself. So there are different ways of doing that. So it was a very low moment, but we learned a very big lesson.
And now you probably have the power to deal, because of the scale you've grown, to deal with something like that.
Yeah, and I'm always talking about it because I think it's an important lesson. You know, who is your audience?
Anyone else want to share a low moment? You do? Yeah.
I remember during the financial crisis, every company was suffering. Ctrip stock went down to pre-split maybe $6. So lots of talents were thinking, oh, where's the hope? Is our company can turn around? So I talked to my husband and I said, I'm willing to put our own money to buy stock, show a very strong incentive for our to rescue the market and show the confidence in the market. Not only we are going to do that, we are going to extend a loan to our employee. For every dollar they want to invest in the company, we'll give them a loan at no interest or very low interest to encourage the team to, at a very difficult time, united as one team to fight through this low tide. So that was very... I was not thinking about myself. I was totally thinking, what's the best way to show our unity and give the confidence to our team, give the confidence to our shareholder. By doing that, our team, all the key management chip in to buy the stock. And that showed a very strong signal to the market. So Ctrip come out to take the leadership and recover very quickly.
Perseverance.
Yep.
There have been many low moments, but Every time I feel like sharing something, I think, this case which everybody knows about, when I'd gone to the hospital and I'd spoken to the parents and the doctors and everything, it was an extremely low moment for me, because I, first of all, as an officer, I realized that what is this kind of crime that I'm going to handle? And secondly, was I equipped to do that? I mean, I knew that if you didn't catch them, it was like a race against time, and if you didn't catch them in time, probably there's going to be so much of a problem that I might have to quit my position. And everything was against us, and we didn't have any clues. I think the only thing that kept me going was, yes, like I needed to help this lady. And, the faith that you have in whatever you've been doing up till now. In fact, all my 12 years of knowledge, hard work, experience, everything I, was able to recall back and then say, no, I'm going to do it. And I think I'm going to not let anybody see that I'm panicking inside somewhere. But, the world with, my staff and, everybody saw that, I was in control. I was like, yes, we're going to do it. So every time, you have this low, my thing is that be prepared to give up a lot, like most of them said. And I was prepared. I said, forget it. My only sole task, it's like you focus on one thing and you stop digressing, and then you got to achieve it. So it's never always a down. It has to come, when you've reached the bottom, the only way you can go is up. So have that faith. And the people who are the most tenacious and while they're lowest are the people finally who win. So I think that is important for all of us to take the message back home.
That's great. Thank you. So the five of us now need to exit the stage, because our last game changers, as you will see in a moment, require most of the stage. But before we do that, big thanks to these four amazing women.
lam du ko to pa ya chan che Chakna padme nam tul gyal mangcho Kusum tulas ke man ma chi par Stantang do